The primary responsibility of a leader is to create a business model that gives people a grounded sense of hope for the future. It's about building a safe bus, which is your business model, and then having leaders who know how to drive that bus and know where they're going. And then anybody you invite into that bus is going to be okay because it's safe and it's got drivers who know where they're going.
On this episode of the Liberty Ventures podcast, I talk with Bob Chapman, the chairman and CEO of Barry-Wehmiller. We talk about how he was able to grow this company from 20 million to over $3 billion over his tenure, utilizing not only sound business models and identifying opportunities to create value that other people overlook, but creating a truly human culture and leadership philosophy that he brings into all of his acquisitions, into everything that Barry-Wehmiller does, and the ways that developing this strong culture leads not only to talent acquisition, but the best ideas and the best opportunities to scale a successful business and make a positive impact in the world. Be sure to check it out right now. Let's actually begin with that background for you, Bob. A number of people listening may have read your book, Everybody Matters, or have listened to you talk at any number of conferences, seen that you've gotten countless awards, whether from the Society for Human Resource Management or the International Business Times or others. But as you were just saying, you didn't start out this way. I'd love it if you'd be willing to share your personal journey that led you to Barry-Wehmiller in the first place and to where you are now in building such an enormously not only sizable company, but impactful one with everything that you're doing.
I've had to, I give a speech every year at Washington University called Defining Moments, looking back that I share with the second year MBA students. And I got a traditional business accounting degree from Indiana. Decided to get an MBA from Michigan. Got a chance to go with Price Waterhouse. Had every intention of being a public accountant, and my father had invested into this kind of broken old machinery company in the 50s, $30,000 to buy a small piece of it, and it was struggling. And in the 1960s, he had a chance to do kind of a leveraged buyout. It wasn't his idea. Somebody approached him. So we gained control. My family gained control of the Barry-Wehmiller company in about 1964, 65 through a leveraged buyout, through asset-based lending, and struggled under the burden of that debt because the company was struggling, but was getting along. And 1969, second year into public accounting, my dad approached me because it never occurred to me to work for the company. A lot of issues in the company. And if you said, why didn't your dad? I have no idea. We just never occurred to us. So anyway, he says to me in 1969, seeing his son start to do well and through Price Waterhouse and my ability to talk strategically, he said, would you consider joining Barry-Wehmiller? I need somebody I could trust. I mean, that was my title, somebody he could trust. The beauty is, for your audience, is because I walked into an unstructured role that didn't exist. My role was my creativity. And my first job was in engineering, coordinating projects with Owens, Illinois, our new technology. I was just the liaison between Owens, Illinois and Barry-Wehmiller. So I got to understand kind of engineering and technology and challenges. And then I moved into running customer service. Then I, got into license agreements, and so it's a little bit like if you look at a clock, you see the hands. It seems pretty simple going around, but if you look behind the clock and you see all those gears that interact to create the time, you appreciate the simple output, but the complex behind it. And so the beauty is, I got to see the company through the complexity. I studied manufacturing, I got into engineering, I got into customer service. So, and we had a small tool and die company that my dad said, was losing money. Would you go run it? So that beauty of my kind of self-created leadership development. My dad suddenly died of a heart attack 6 years later, and I'm 30, he was 60. Company, the first thing happened, the company, the banks pulled our loans because the company was so thin without my dad there and this 30-year-old kid. They give. Now, the good news to your audience is that's the good news. So how could it be good news right after your dad dies, the banks pull on it? Because it stimulated in me a reaction. I said, in hindsight, I kind of said, I ain't going down like this. I grabbed a hold of that company. I got a hold of its cost structure, and under the pressure of the banks wanting to withdraw, we had the most profitable year in our history my first year at 30 years old. Okay. And it paid off our debt. So I didn't replace the banks, I paid them off. And so that's the good news. The bad news is I became a little overconfident. Okay. Because I turned the company around in its 100-year history. They had its most profitable year in its history the first year I ran it. And that's the only thing that changed is my run-in. My intensity to react to my dad's death, the bank's pulling on us. My reaction was, I'm going to deal with these cost structure issues. And so anyway, then I began growing the company organically with my ideas from my MBA program. I got into solar energy, got into electronic technology, and everything seemed to be unbelievable. We grew from 18 million to 72 million in 4 years. We were growing all over the world. It was the story of St. Louis. The problem was the company was experiencing growth beyond our capacity to handle growth. But it was so exciting that it masked the practical aspects. Can you really? And my bankers supported it, my board supported it, but all of a sudden, each one of those initiatives started having issues. The solar energy panels started warping, the filling technologies. So anyway, all of a sudden, now in 1983, the banks pulled on me again. This time it was severe. They pulled on, and so I spent 9 months trying to refinance the business. Okay, and the beauty is when you have no money, you learn things you would never learn when you have money. In other words, I learned more in that 9 months that we lived day to day on cash, and that shaped the company we have become. The trauma that I lived through. Now, I didn't feel the trauma. I dealt with the trauma. It never caused me stress because I just said, this is a challenge that I've got to get through. So anyway, I got through that. We got refinanced, and I said something to my team. I said, I'm proud of our 100-year history, but I now realize our history does not give us a future. We need to step out and start acquiring companies that have product lines that give us a better future. And my team looked at me and said, Bob, great idea. We only got one problem. And I said, what's that? And they said, we have no money, Bob. Do you understand that? We have no money. A bit of a now for most people, it's a bit of a problem. Okay, it's like going shopping without your wallet. Okay, and but this is what I want your audience to hear. My reaction to that statement was I looked at the team and I said, I didn't tell you I needed money. I told you we needed to do acquisitions. And I left that room unencumbered by the fact that I had no money. And I just got refinanced with asset-based lenders. And I began doing acquisitions. What do you buy when you have no money? You buy stuff nobody else wants. Okay. But I did, and I brought, because of the intensity of the situation, I was determined to be successful in these, and I was. I took companies nobody else wanted. I saw value where other people didn't see it, and so this is 85. By 86, late 86, still struggling financially, even though we were doing these smaller acquisitions, an idea surfaced that we could spin off 2/3 of our company on the London Stock Exchange, kind of the acquisitions plus a piece of the history. And so spin off 70% of the company, keep 30, and generate enough cash to pay off our debt and have $2 million in the bank. Now that seemed like 1,000,000 to 1 odds that we could actually take these broken pieces, put them together and go public. But sheer determination, focusing on value, by May of 87, we launched this $30 million collection of kind of sunrise to sunset businesses, and it was oversubscribed 35 times. And instead of ending up paying off our debt and having $2 million in the bank, which we thought would be heaven, we ended up with $28 million in the bank and 30% ownership in a public company. This was now worth $70 million. So we went from virtually insolvency to dramatic liquidity overnight by sheer positive attitude and looking for value. So that's kind of the end of the historic story. So now I sit in June of 87 with $28 million in the bank, a $20 million piece of the historic business still private, and 30% ownership in a $35 million public company. So now the new journey began. The new Barry-Wehmiller began. And I sat down, and I think this is important for your audience, given the nature of your audience. I sat down for almost 9 months, reveling in what actually happened. And I went back and I looked at my journey from my dad's death in '75, and what did I learn? And I said, what I learned is how to fix broken businesses, because that's what I bought with no money. And so I said, and so we were sitting at 20 million, and I came back to my board 9 months later. I have an idea that I could create $100 million business, because there's a number of companies I've studied now in the last 9 months that are just as broken as we were, that I see where we could create value. So I went to them with a vision. We're gonna buy challenged businesses with good recurring revenue, and we're gonna bring the value creation, which we've proven we could do prior to the public offering. I said, okay. So the vision was to get to 100 million, but the key was this time we're going to have balance of products, markets, and technology. No dependence on any one sector, any one technology. So should something change, we're hurt. So balance is a key word in the new Barry-Wehmiller that emerged in 1988. That vision in 1988 that I created to get us to 100 million got us to 3.5 billion. Okay. And I would say to you, to all your audience, the primary responsibility of a leader is to create a business model that gives people a grounded sense of hope for the future. So again, the business model I designed with balance of markets, products, and technology, with a high degree of recurring revenue, which is predictable. If Ford builds a new F-150, they drive it into the worst terrain they can to see how the chassis, the engine holds up. Well, if you design a business model, drive it into '08, '09, when General Electric, Bank of America, a lot of companies experienced severe challenges. Great businesses prior to '08, '09, all of a sudden, their business model failed. We went through '08, '09 with our business model. We let nobody go. Our share price went up 11%, and we came out of it stronger than we went into it. So our business model, which is the primary responsibility of a leader, okay, it's not getting the right people on the bus. It's about building a safe bus, which is your business model, and then having leaders who know how to drive that bus and know where they're going. And then anybody you invite into that bus is going to be okay, because it's safe and it's got drivers who know where they're going. So again, I would say to you, my experience is that today again, we're the combination of 130, I call them adoptions, acquisitions around the world. We got 13,000 team members, and our share price has gone up an average of 12 to 14% compounded for 25 years, as measured by EVA, economic value added. So it's a very objective term. So I'd say to you again, the key is for every leader is you've got to have a business model that when you invite people to join your firm, they can decide to get married, they can decide to raise kids, to buy a home, because they can count on you as a leader to give them that sense of confidence, and they will share gifts with you towards that goal they didn't ever imagine. So again, that's the number one responsibility of any business leader, is to have a business model that gives people a grounded sense of hope for the future. Your investors, your team members, your customers.
Bob, you just shared a number of themes in there that I just want to highlight. You're emphasizing the business model here and the complexities of building a large, thriving business from that financial and business side of things. But you're talking about things like trust being critical, that your dad brought you in because he trusted you, not just because you were a great accountant and you had the training that you did. That trust was critical to give you the ability to then be creative in figuring out the different components of the business and the future for it. And when times are tough, you were talking about maintaining a positive attitude through it, not just reacting to it, but still looking towards the future, and then sharing that with everyone else, that hope for the future. These are big abstract ideas that that might be tough for other people to think about applying to business.
One of the things we've learned, Alexander, is that we're all born with a unique personality. And what I can do with my personality skills is different than somebody else. And, not judging one or the other, but we all are created uniquely different. I was blessed with not a great level of intelligence. I think I was blessed with a great deal of common sense and creativity and a positive attitude. And if you blend those three together, the way I would describe our journey was I saw value that other people didn't see. And I was able to capture that value. And again, as you know, Harvard did a case study on our company. So the validation of this message, Harvard did a case study. It's now, they tell us, one of their better selling cases with 70 universities from Japan to India using it to teach leadership. So that is, if you think of a parent, your responsibility as a parent is to provide an environment for your family that gives them a sense of they can be taken care of health wise, they can have a good education, and they can have a good, safe home. As a parent, we try to provide for our family. Well, take that same example into the business, okay? The people, they're not your children, but they're somebody's precious child that's in your care. Your goal is to look at those people that you invite into your company and to make sure that those people feel valued and that those people feel that they have a future and they can count on your leadership. So that leaders have got to rise above the day to day, and they got to make sure they know where they're going and how they're going to get there, and have the creativity and the passion to share that vision so that people can embrace. Again, I always say, in business school, I took management classes. I got a management degree and I got a job in management. So I thought I was supposed to manage people. I was never taught to care for people, and I was never taught to inspire people. So I would say to you, when you manage people, they'll give you what you ask, and not. But when you inspire people, they'll give you gifts beyond your imagination and their imagination. That's kind of the foundation of truly human leadership. A good business model that you share with people that gives them ground and send them hope, and then constantly people are engaged and proud of what they're a part of. And so constantly the senior executive's role is to shape that vision, to give people a sense of where are we going, not just do your job, that's what I pay you for, but where are we going, and how can you contribute to that journey with us. So that is the job of a leader, okay? Not just to design the product or deal with the customer, but to realize that you are the inspiration that people will give you their perspiration for.
And to emphasize what you just said, as a leader, you're giving them an inspiration for the future, where the company is going, and also connecting their role to it, how they're able to contribute so that they're not just checking the boxes for what you say to do, but so that they're really helping figure out how to bring that future into reality and how they're a part of it.
Yeah, remember, Alexander, statistically, 88% of all people feel they work for an organization that does not care about them. 88%, okay? And 75% of all people are disengaged in what they're doing. They're doing exactly what they need to do the job, and then they can't wait till 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock when they leave and go home and get out of that environment. So, how do, as leaders, how does as father, how do you create the environment for your family? How do you create the environment for the people that come in each day? Because one of the things I want your audience to hear that I learned, never in my education, never in my post education experience, was I ever told or heard that the way I would run Barry-Wehmiller would affect the way people would go home and treat their spouse and their kids. So I want to make sure that we don't overlook that. I realized in this journey that when we teach people to be leaders in our company through empathetic listening, recognition, and celebration, culture of service, when we teach them the skills of leadership as opposed to management, 90% of the feedback is how it affects their marriage and their relationship with their kids. You cannot imagine what that means to hear the stories we hear of the impact on people's personal lives when they feel valued. And that's the name of our book is Everybody Matters. People simply want to know that who they are and what they do matters. And when you genuinely show them they do, they will share gifts with you for not only their own success, but for their fellow team members. Okay, you'll get that collective power that takes organizations. So Again, I use an example in my speeches. If Ferrari builds the ultimate high performance engine, and you put 85 octane in that engine, it'll start, it'll run down the road, and eventually it'll go fast. Probably won't win any races. But if you put 91 octane in that engine, that Ferrari is going to perform to its potential. So your business model for every one of your business model is the engine which you designed. The culture, which we're talking about, is the premium fuel that activates that engine. Okay. You can't put premium fuel in a Toyota and think you're going to beat a Ferrari. Okay. So a good culture can't mask a bad business model. Okay. It's not simply about caring. It's a rich combination of a good business model that you're constantly looking at how it's performing. It's your game plan for sports. It's your game plan for business, and then the fuel for that business model is the culture. When people embrace that, and again, our share price has gone up more than 12% a year compounded for 25 years. There's a Harvard case study on it. There's the book. So the validation of that is beyond. Nobody debates what I just said to you. They just don't know how to do that, because we taught so much about management, using people to achieve goals instead of caring for people to achieve meaningful accomplishments together. So it's a team sport. So as leaders, the people that on this podcast, looking at the people in your organization, not as engineers, accountants, receptionists, hourly workers, production workers, looking at them as somebody's precious child that's been placed in your care for 40 hours a week, and simply want to go home at night knowing that what they do matters. That is the role of every leader in every company. And we could heal this poverty of dignity we have in this country if we had leaders who knew how to give people that sense of mattering, sense of dignity in their whatever their role is. So again, that's what we need in every part of our society, not just business.
All I can say is preach. I think that is absolutely on point and needed. And I love that you're saying the business model is absolutely critical. You need a business model that's going to succeed and lead to a thriving company, but you need the right culture to power that as well. And everything you just laid out, really important. Treat people with basic dignity, treat them with respect, help them feel like they're valued, make sure they know that they actually are. But those are pretty abstract ideas that people would pretty easily agree with. How do you go about actually imbuing that in Barry-Wehmiller and get others to do so beyond yourself?
Well, I'll start off by saying the bad news about COVID, it was highly contagious. The good news about caring, it's even more contagious than COVID. And we didn't know that. So when we decided that we've been blessed with a vision of the way the world was intended to be, where people cared for each other, and we needed to convert managers into leaders, we started Barry-Wehmiller University, and we taught our eclectic team came up with three powerful classes in hindsight, brilliant classes in hindsight. And the first and most fundamental class, which amazed me, was empathetic listening. I thought we knew how to listen as adults. Okay. It just seemed illogical to me. It seemed illogical that we would take the time in a 3-day course in Barry-Wehmiller University to teach people to listen with empathy. But our team said, Bob, we were going to do this. So they overran me. And they taught this class. And then the second class they teach is recognition and celebration. How do you let people, we know in raising kids, if you don't compliment them 5 times more than you suggest things they can improve, it's hard on them. Okay. Well, I find adults are exactly the same way. How in thoughtful, timely, appropriate ways, how do you let people know they matter? Recognize the goodness, and it's called shining light in the organization, looking for the goodness, holding it up and saying thank you. So we teach the skills. It's called FBI, feelings, behaviors, and impact. It's a skill to recognize. It's not just that a boy, here's a pat on the back. It is a skill to let people know they matter. And the good news is when you let people know they matter, everybody else feels good too, because they know Mary or Bill deserve that. And the third class is called a culture of service, seizing the opportunity to serve others, which is moving from a me-centric world, it's about me and my career, to a we society where we actually care about others that we have the privilege of interacting with in society, at work and society. Those three classes, designed by our team to convert managers into leaders, were implemented 20 years ago. And as you know, Simon Sinek, Raj Sisodia, all these people came up to our operation because we had no idea what we had until Simon walked in now about 12 years ago. And because he had talked to me, he liked what he heard, but he didn't believe it. And he came up and he said, he spent 2 days talking to our people in two large operations. And he said, I'm no longer a nutty idealist. I've just seen what I dream of. And he said, I dream of a world where you could tap anybody in the shoulder anywhere in the world and say, do you like their job? And they say, no, I don't like my job. I love my job. And Simon said, if it exists, it must be possible. Raj Sisodia said, I have, when I asked people what this truly human leadership meant to them in a similar tour, he said, grown men and women came to tears to say what it felt like to be cared for. And then Bill Urey of Harvard, World Peace Negotiator, a friend of Simon, comes in, and Bill Urey says, after 2 days of talking to our people here, World Peace Negotiator, started Harvard School of Negotiation, phenomenal human being, comes in, spends 2 days talking to our people and says he saw the answer to world peace. I said, Bill, you came to a manufacturing company and you saw the answer to world peace? He said, yes, I saw a place where people genuinely care for each other. Okay. And because they learn the skills of listening, because they learn to recognize and celebrate the goodness of others, and because they seize the opportunity to serve each other. So all of a sudden, we found that this eclectic journey took us to a culture that the McKinsey partners, Harvard's top MBA professors who came in and wrote the case study, said, I've never seen anything like this. How is it possible? Because this eclectic journey of trying to be good stewards of these 13,000 people, we realized we needed to give our leaders something they didn't get from their experience and their studies and their education, which is how to care. Okay. They're taught how to use people. So, anyway, that led to this culture that today is known around the world through our book, through the case study. I mean, again, the book Everybody Matters, which is really about, caring. A typical business book sells 5 to 10,000, I'm told by our publisher, and we just topped 110,000 copies in 8 languages around the world. The world is hungry for a message of caring. And again, I'll add one. We all know of the issues we have between Israel and Palestine, and and Ukraine and Russia and all these other issues. But Bill Urey added one other comment after his visit. He said, I now realize, Bob, because I heard all your people talking about the power of listening, empathetic listening. I now realize I've been going to global peace talks for 30 years. And I now realize that's just what they were. They're global peace talks. The problem we have in the world is nobody knows how to listen. Okay. We have a world where I'm right and you're wrong, whether it's at work, at home, in our communities, in the world. So Bill Urey saw not only the answer to world peace, he saw the issue that why can't we get along as nations in the world, as cultures in the world, because we don't know how to listen, which is the greatest way we can understand each other and live together in the world.
There's so many benefits from embracing those principles for adopting a truly human leadership approach and culture in the company. And since you said that culture really powers the business model and everything else, I'm curious with your acquisitions and the growth of Barry-Wehmiller, how much of that do you attribute to developing this culture and infusing that, especially when you talk about acquiring businesses that you think have strong revenue models that seem to have the right business model and but are struggling for one reason or another that you can go in and make more effective.
Yeah, Raj Sisodia, when he became aware of this, having studied obviously Whole Foods, and it was a lot about the product and the company, but not really about the people as much. Raj, he got on our jet and he went to northern London, he went to Italy, he went to France, and he was amazed that everywhere he went, he saw the same reaction to our truly human culture. And people say to me, Bob, you haven't had organic growth from 20 million to 3.6 billion. You've had growth through strategic acquisition, 130 acquisitions around the world, from China to India to Serbia to North Carolina, et cetera. And I said, how do you create this culture with all those different histories? I said, it's the easiest thing we do. We adopt a new company and we say to the people in the company, welcome to the family. We've got a good future together. And we're honest with them. We share our vision, and grown men and women come to tears. I remember one lady said to me, I never thought I was going to get to work for a company that cared about me. And the first message we do when we adopt a new company around the world is, we care about you. The other thing interesting to your audience is, you cannot believe the talent we're attracting to our company, because our culture is, we're more known for our culture than our product. Okay. And I remember a gentleman that joined us recently from major corporations. I won't name the ones, major legendary companies, said, Bob, this is the first company I've ever worked for I'm actually proud of. Okay. Because of what it stands for. So the attractiveness of talent, opportunities to acquire another companies, almost every one of our acquisitions last year, our adoptions last year, were dramatically influenced by our culture. Because people who want to transition out of a company, sell their company, have very few options for people who will care for the people in their company, as opposed to by their revenue or their profitability or their technology. So the collateral value of caring is, your customers want to do business with you because of this. Okay. The attractiveness of talent. Um, and you can have a great business model, but if you don't have great talent, you can't capture it. So we are just really harvesting the true value of this investment of 20 years, and people love it. I mean, people talk about it with their families, and so I would say to you, business. That's why I said business could be one of the most powerful forces for good in the world if we simply knew how to care for our people. And I don't mean pay and benefits and dog sitters. I mean genuinely showing the people they care, because we desperately need that in every. I speak in every part of society, from government and hospitals to healthcare to nonprofit. It's broken everywhere. We don't have leaders. They're not bad people, but they were never taught to care. They were taught to achieve financial, organizational goals and rewarded for doing so.
Bob, I think that is a great place for us to end. Thank you so much, not only for joining us and sharing all these insights with the Liberty Ventures community, but for building an incredible company, an incredible culture, and sharing this message with so many people.
Honestly, I feel that that is my role in this world. I always say you can retire from a job, but you can't retire from a calling. I believe we've been blessed with a vision of the way the world was meant to be, and our hope is to inspire others to join us in this journey to heal this poverty. Remember, we have the most prosperous economy in our history, and we have the highest level of depression, anxiety, and suicide we've ever had. There's something wrong here. Prosperity does not create happiness. Feeling valued creates happiness. And every one of the leaders on this, who listen to this podcast, has a chance to look at the people in their span of care, not as functions for their success, but as somebody's precious child has been placed in their care, and the way they treat them will impact their health and their marriage and the way they treat their kids and behave. And we can heal this concern we all have for the state of the world and the conflict in the world. And it starts right in we have people for 40 hours a week. We could make a profound impact on the world. So, Alexander, it's an honor to be on your podcast. I hope it resonates with our message, and we rise to the challenge of healing this poverty of dignity.
Here, here. I hope everyone listening rises to that challenge and opportunity. And really, thank you, Bob.